Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our Behind Her Brand Monday Morning Brew. I got my Hello Gorgeous cup going here with a amazing cup of caramel vanilla with French vanilla coffee. I got a lot going on this morning. But anyways, I am so happy to have you here. I'm so happy that you're joining us. And I am not going to be before you long today. I was thinking about this. One of the best moves that we can make as women who are pursuing and building and growing and trying to be everything and all things that we are striving to be in life is the gift of silence. Okay. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I find so often that people typically want to share everything they're doing, everything they're thinking, everything that they're working on. They want to get opinions on everything that they feel like, okay, I may want to do this, I may want to do that. I think I'm going to launch this. I think I'm going to do this book. I think I'm going to do this podcast. And they want to get a host of a lot of opinions. Is there anything wrong with giving feedback? No. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying one of the things that I think is healthy if we take apart the need to have to keep sharing so much. There is true value in sitting with the things that are deposited in with you. And before I go through a couple of those benefits, I always take everything back to God and say, okay, what do you say about this? And so there are a couple of scriptures that I wanted to read real quick, just to have a frame of reference here. In Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3, verse 7, it says, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, right? And the second one, Proverbs 17, chapter 17, verse 27 to 28. He who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. And I love both of those. And there's some more different ones that are all in the Word of God. I thought it was such a beautiful thing to see how many verses really talk about the value of silence. But I love that there's a time to be silent and a time to speak. And that sometimes when you restrain the words that you want to quickly tell everybody, you find knowledge. And how I correlate this to each of us is there are times where we have ideas, thoughts of a new program, book, podcast, whatever it may be. And if we are not silent and spend that time really cultivating it, really looking at it, really flushing it out, really looking at all the different angles of it, if we don't spend that time really nurturing that in a form of silence, we can find ourselves creating unclarity in what it is that we're meant to build. And what happens when unclarity comes into play, and that's the word I'm using right now, unclarity, is we start sharing with everybody. We start getting outside opinions, outside critics come in, people saying, oh, this is not a good time probably to do that. Oh, I don't think you should do that. And we start getting all of this noise, right? And we get all this noise because we are wanting to share so much it can stop you from moving forward. So it stops progress. It can cause overwhelm because you're hearing so many different things that you should do that you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not ready for that. So then it can create frustration. It can create doubt. It can create, oh my gosh, should I be doing this? And it can create all these different things that are not even necessary. So having a season where, you know what, this is my season where I'm going to build in silence and I'll let my results show itself when it needs to show itself. But I'm going to work on that book. I'm going to work on that podcast. I'm going to work on that program. I'm going to build this conference. I'm going to build this retreat. I'm going to do whatever I need to do in the silence and do that. Because oftentimes, so often, when we move in a way that's just quiet, we find that we hear more what we need to hear. We see what we need to see. We're able to really communicate what we need to communicate. And in that, you find much more strength in loving, owning, feeling good with your creativity, with your thoughts, with your way of seeing things. I am not saying that getting outside perspective from time to time is an issue, not at all. I'm definitely not saying that. But there is beauty in silence. Silence also gives you a place of calm. And I don't mean just like woosah type of thing, but whenever you start moving in silence, you find that you're not going to be as hurried. You're not going to feel as pressed. You're not going to feel that sense of hustle. You're not going to feel like I got to get this done. Da, da, da. You're not going to feel all that. There's a sense of peace and calmness when you move in silence. Let me give you an example. When a couple years ago, maybe almost 5 years ago, God gave me the concept of doing the retreats that we started holding. We Walk by Faith. And I didn't know what they would look like. I didn't know what they needed to be like. And I just sat in silence with it. I just prayed about it. I started to write out my notes. I started to do everything. And then I had a moment where my flesh was like, okay, wait a minute. And so when I started putting it out there, should I be doing this? Immediately, all the different ideas that came back was like counter to what I knew I was supposed to do. And I learned there's some things you just need to be silent about. And when you're doing that, you start building in a way that God has assigned you to build something out. And then when we was ready to launch it, then I was able to launch it. I've done that with my book. I've done that with different things that I've created in the past. There's some things that you just need to move in silence so that you can thoroughly, with clarity, calm, and honestly, with a sense of creativity, you can flush everything out. So I want to share with you why this is so important. So often I hear women say, I'm not creative. I feel lost. I don't know what to do. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to have any more obstacles, which we're all going to have them. Okay. All these different things come up so often. But if we remember there's a time for silence and a time when you need to speak, there's a time where few words are necessary so knowledge can rise up in itself. When you really start really holding on to that, you'll find that you're not going to have as many competing thoughts. You're going to feel much more assured in the direction that you're going in. And you're not going to feel that loss of feeling. You're not going to feel that overwhelm. Because a lot of times those things come in when we stop looking at our own value, our own ideas, our own creativity, when we feel like we have to depend or need the ideas and validation and feedback from so many different people versus just trusting ourselves. There is value in just being still. There is value in just quieting everything. You'll be so surprised at how much floods to you when you really sit with what you truly desire to do. You will find so much more clarity in that space. So I want to encourage you that if you are on the brink of creating something, writing a book, launching a podcast, maybe you're launching a ministry, nonprofit, a song, whatever it might be, take a time for yourself and just be in silence. Don't share anything. Don't put anything out there quite yet. Let it be fully baked before you put it out there. And then when it's time, because there's a time for everything, there's a time to speak. Speak when you have fully developed what it is that you know that you're supposed to be developing in this particular season. Okay. And I just want to encourage you on this because you will find, I can tell you from experience, you find that better results come when you can spend time with the very thing that you're supposed to design and create. Now, if you find that you struggle with this, if you find that this is a hard concept to really kind of grab onto, share that below. And I am confident there are going to be women who are reading this that can give you some insights, give you some suggestions, and give you some, hey, here's what I did when I needed to have that. Because it can be a struggle when so many people are so used to always putting things out there all the time to say, no. Let me take that apart and choose and restrain myself from putting so much out there. And let me sit with the very things that are deposited in me until I really cultivate it before I present it to the world. So if you have any struggle with that, or if you have any suggestions on how you were able to do that successfully, please share that below. It is truly one of the best moves you can make is have periods of silence when it comes to the things that you're creating and birthing. It will do wonders for you. All right. Thank you again, as always, joining me for our Monday morning behind brew. Was it behind her brand? For our Behind Her Brand Monday Morning Brew. Thank you for joining us. And if you have topics or hey, I would love for you to talk about this, post those below as well. I want your feedback. This is not an audience of one. This is a community. And I would love to know any topics that you would love to see featured on here. Let me know that below. My goal, my purpose, my desire is always to try to give some type of insight, encouragement, inspiration, or anything in those categories as it relates to things that I see and I personally experience or things that I've seen other women experience. We try to bring it on the Monday Morning Brew shows. So if there's a topic, please let me know, and we will do our best to address as many of them as we can. All right, ladies, I wish you nothing but pure success this week. And thank you again for joining me for our Behind Her Brand Monday Morning Brew.